important thing that I hold to myself is my work is my worship, and there is no shortcut to success. You just have to work hard and you have to continue doing it.
Hi, I'm Udit Saxena. I'm a global CXO leadership coach. I've been a CXO. I've worked in 5 countries over the last 30 years, and I've impacted 10,000 lives across the world. My students have come from the US, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia.
Udit Saxena is the founder of CXO Hive, an award-winning global CXO coach, specializes in executive coaching and leadership development. Trained by John Mattone and experienced across 5 countries, he guides leaders and organizations to achieve exceptional results. Let's put our hands together for Udit.
I'm accepting this award for every transformed client award.
Hi, are you a leader who's looking to get promoted, find a new job, or maybe get a meaningful salary increase in an environment that's so uncertain? With layoffs, with AI coming in, one really doesn't know what's happening. I have something special for you. I'm going to be getting the Global CXO Accelerator Summit to India for the 2nd time in a succession. This is a 7-day event, 5 days online and 2 days live, right here in Bengaluru on February 21st and 22nd of 2026. So mark your calendar and make sure you register for the event.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, whichever part of the world you're in. Thank you so much for coming in.
We're having another podcast today with a very illustrious leader. We have Sweetyrath with us. She's a CHRO and with Avaya, and it's such a pleasure to have her. So, Sweety, would love to welcome you to the program.
Excellent. Good afternoon to people in India and possibly a good day, a great Saturday if the sun is already risen. Barring the technical difficulty, like I was just speaking to Mudit, that by Murphy's Law, my internet has been a little choppy. I am hoping that I'm not pixelated and Mudit and everybody can hear me okay.
Absolutely, you're doing great, and like most leaders, you've come out of this crisis, brilliantly. So take credit for that, and just to let our viewers know a little bit about you, Sweety. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and how you've been?
Fantastic. Well, this is such a loaded question when you have to introduce yourself. Uh, so I've been working in the human capital management for the longest period of time in my career. I come with a technical background, with an engineering degree, which most of the times people, which I call the 90s kids, had a path to pick up. And then HR happened to me by choice when I was at Dell, and one of my mentors that I'm still in touch with potentially just said that you could be a better, people's person. That's what HR used to be back then, rather than a better coder. Maybe he was trying to say I'm a bad coder. I've been in the human capital space for a little over 21, almost touching the 22 years of my career here. Been a strategist. I'm pursuing my doctoral program in the emerging technologies and in the time of AI. Trying to potentially learn, unlearn every day, and shifting the narrative from what we do to how we enable business to do. So I try to stay either what I call is in the line of the revenue or close to the revenue, and link every strategy that could be in the space of human capital, human processes, or technology for a revenue growth, leading to transformations, potentially forming organizations which are future ready and agile.
Superb. That's a lot. I think people will need to take a few minutes to digest everything that you said, along the way. But tell us, how have you managed to sort of really move up the ladder, right? You started as a coder and now you've been in human capital, right? What has helped you succeed along the way?
You know, I it's always nice to look things in the rear view, because then you almost think like you could have changed it, right? I have fundamentally believed that we are sort of surviving and living, hopefully a sustainable living in a high stake world of human capital. I mean, I have some of my well-wishers, my very good friends. I potentially call them my significant other. In places where you have possibly aviation or shipping or any asset which you can touch and feel. But when you are in the information technology side of it, or what we very fondly call as software development, product development, services, our people are your assets. I mean, you don't really have a ship. I have a very good friend of mine who works in the shipping industry. I have a mentor in an aviation industry. And when they talk about things that they can touch and feel, I feel a little, vacuumed at that point in time. So that was the raw reality that literally touched me at various levels of my intellectual development, saying that in such a high stake world, what is that one quality that is sustainable, that could keep you above the rest, could keep you breathing above the rest? And I'm going to use something which might sound very cliche, but I'll double click on that a little bit. I call that quality as empathy. And empathy is not about understanding somebody's feelings alone, but it is a conscious effort of developing what I call is a cognitive muscle to understand a perspective, to master active listening, which I think, Mudit, as a coach, you potentially do it every day. to drive a strategic change, which ultimately becomes a participative decision making. I think for me, my biggest learning came from the unlearning of the fact that there are no extra points to play a hero. You could be a hero when you are, not only holding on to something, but you're retooling yourself much faster than uh, what you did earlier. So you're sort of creating a better version of yourself from being a professional to a leader. Did that
Wow.
make any sense?
Yes, yes. I'm sure a lot of people here are trying to, get the meaning of a lot of things that you said, right? Right from active listening. I think as an HR person, perhaps firstly you've got to listen to the HR and board as to where they want to go. The CEO and the board, and then you have to listen to all the employees around and see the kind of capital that you have, and then try and do a match. So I think active listening is a critical part, and so I think that's very well said. It's something that'll probably hold a lot of us in good stead. And coming to listening, right? I mean, let's look at the environment today, right? And what we need to do to listen, because there is so much uncertainty, right? There's AI, there's so many layoffs that are happening. It's almost become fashionable for every company to do something like this.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for mid-career leaders? And I'm going to talk about, let's take them by different parts. One is, if you're still in a role, how do you make sure you're not part of this layoff list? Okay. The next thing is, if you've got laid off, what should you be doing to get back in? So let's look at these two before we head off into other areas.
So, and that's a beautiful way of articulating what I call as an anxiety that you today see in the market. We need to understand where this anxiety is coming in, and in my role that I perform across various geographies, from Latin America to Europe to, of course, the Americas, and closer home in Asia. I see a fundamental shift of what I call as a psychological contract. Back in the day when some of us started our careers, we had a deal, a kind of unsaid deal with our employer. The deal was, give us loyalty, high output, we give you a predictable ladder and security. What has just suddenly busted on us as we are moving in 2026 is that deal is officially expired. The ladder is sort of rewritten. And stay with me for a moment here when I'm trying to say, what do you mean by a ladder to be rewritten? Um, Many of our audiences who are hearing me live now and potentially later too, if you have kids, or if you have gone to a supermarket on the top floor and have seen kids playing through a jungle gym, they get inside on one direction, come out on the other direction. Uh, that is exactly how our career has become. The ladder has become a portfolio. There's no linear climbing. There is no linear source of skill and income generation. There is supplementation that is coming in as a strategic way. I have come across this interesting Gen Z term called as quiet cracking. I don't know how many of my audiences have familiar with it, but it is a very subtle erosion of morale and identity of high performers. Back in the day when I was much younger and I didn't have to, really put an effort to put that energy at work, and it came much naturally. I just thought that being a high performer, being excellent in my job was an absolute shield. I cannot be touched. So my currency was my degree, the academic background, and potentially my bosses giving me exceed expectation and outstanding rating. But now the new currency is skills. And how do you upgrade your skills is micro upskilling. I know I'm throwing out a little jargons here, but that is exactly what we are trying to do. If you have seen my portfolio, I work for Avaya. Many of us who started our career in the early 2000s would remember that big black phone with not so looking beautiful buttons, but those were the Avaya phones. From Avaya phones to Avaya contact centers, software to Avaya Infinity is a journey of micro upskilling. So I think the insight that I would definitely want to provide this to my colleagues who are sort of in that middle wing of the pyramid is your retooling of your skills is what it takes you to the next level. Um, I think if you are unfortunately in a situation where your career security that used to come to you from being in a certain brand name, being in a certain skill, ceases to exist, here are three things that I would tell that we should practice. I call it skill liquidity, not longevity. Please don't take a lot of credit saying that, if since I'm coming in from HR, and I would say that, listen, I am a compensation and benefit expert for 40 countries and I'm doing that for 20 years. Fantastic. That is the longevity of the skill. But how am I liquidizing that skill from one context to another? It could be through domain, it could be through potentially adding on maybe a benefits into compensation, looking at total rewards, looking at other directional pieces. And I don't want to limit this only in HR. The next thing that I would say, that if you're in a situation where you're suddenly seen with an unprecedented job loss, we need to look at our good friend. If you remember the Vodafone ad with a little pug walking around, I think our AI channels have become such a good friend of ours. Look at it as a force multiplier rather than a reason for your layoff. I mean, and any AI tool can draft a 40-page strategy in seconds. But trust me, I've tried this. It cannot potentially help you take the high stake judgments, which is your ultimate job insurance. So, all the things that you've heard about human in loop, the final 10% high stakes, you can just put this in AI right now as I speak, and you will be able to collect out a lot of insights that come from it, but use it as a force multiplier. The third thing that I would really look at is, and I use this term called as, I mean, how we are familiar with the word networking, but I would call it as network of gravity. Remember back in the day before COVID, we all used to be in this, especially people in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, Chennai, these amazing buildings which were called as SEZ and tech spaces. A lot of networking happening within office, the air cooler conversations right at the smoking area, in the cafeteria. But COVID changed all that. So we should not be just be a network for looking for a job, but become a node. And when you become a node, it is a everyday investment. You're sharing insights, you're mentoring people, you're staying visible. So you're kind of creating the gravity so that when you are in a situation, you tap onto your gravity to potentially handle the layoff. And last but not the least, which is what I started my narration on empathy, is um, your resilience is your psychological capital. I mean, it has been for the longest period of time and continues to be the overlooked part of the security, because we all have homes to run, EMIs to give, manage our responsibilities. So security comes not from the money you have, not from the people you know, but the confidence that you can learn and unlearn. If you believe that your value is tied to a specific job, type of software in the IT sector of it, or a process, you are risking yourself inadvertently. But if you believe that you have the ability to solve a complex problem, you can even shift your career after 15 years of working in a particular domain. I'm going to take a pause here, Mudit, but I just wanted to see
Yeah.
if I was able to answer both your questions in terms of.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think we should take a longer pause because there's so much that you said. I think let it settle in, and we'll just have a little break and then come back. Yeah. So in 30 seconds to a minute, we'll be right there.
Hi, are you a leader who's looking to get promoted, find a new job? I'm going to be getting the Global CXO Accelerator Summit to India for the second time in a succession. Well, firstly, this is a 7-day event, 5 days online and 2 days live, right here in Bengaluru on February 21st and 22nd of 2026. So mark your calendar and make sure you register for the event.
So great. Thank you so much, Sweety. And if you'd like to, meet Sweety in person, I mean, it'll be great if I could see you. You can come to the event and you can listen to her once again and look forward to seeing you there. So coming back, Sweety, I think you made some very interesting points. And I think there are a couple of takeaways there that I want to sort of, so you talked about first the psychological contract, which is sort of changed, right? So I think everybody is aware of that. And there is that worry. And I think at the end of the day, there is a resilience required at every stage, right? So, I always tell my cohort to build a very healthy morning routine, where you're constantly, whatever the world has to throw at you, you're able to quickly tune in to your own self and, build that resilience spot, so to speak. Yeah. But you mentioned one thing which is very important here, which is called micro skilling, right? And can you tell everybody a lot more? Because I think you linked, I'm seeing a link between micro skilling and skill longevity and liquidity, right? Because they're allied concepts to my mind. But tell us a little more about that. What should leaders continually be doing?
That's like potentially, if I have to answer this of micro skilling, that what is that one thing that you want to take from your previous life to your future life? I think micro skilling is one skill that I personally feel, because while I'm talking of micro skilling as a definition, the ability to learn is a altogether different ball game. So let me first answer this in the way how leaders understand microskilling. We all have been, for the very longest period of time, build a competency dictionary or a competency ability in us based on the jobs that either we are academically trained or we are developed it on the job. I want to call that as a competency trap. Okay. So to get out of the competency trap, we need to first look at that your education filled up the 20s of your life. And then what is that you carry through rest of your life? So as you are developing an ability to understand technology, an ability to understand conflict resolution framework, you start picking up new skills in the market. Now, microskilling is a compound interest of your career. You are like practicing a certain skill daily to make a massive competitive outcome. Now, if I take my own example, my education from a technical degree, which many of us sitting in the call right now have, potentially helped us to analytically look at data. But it may not have been something where we want to, look at a strategic social capital. So how do you think your job has moved out of coming out in your own department to be a cross-functional impact? So sometimes being in general and accounting, which is HR, which is where I earn my bread and butter, I think we need to move out from the traditional cohorts of learning to cross-functionally creating an impact. So microskilling is not about doing certifications, going to LinkedIn and learning, or doing what I would call is like every 10 years adding a degree. Yes, the best way of being practical is how thorough you are with your theory. But I think what is important for us is the impact. So we need to be very light on our feet to understand that what are these decisions that we could take that can create a cross-functional impact. When I sit down with my leaders, I always tried to advise, and Avaya being in company that has been in business for almost what 33 years, having the best of the mergers acquisitions under their belt. I mean, Nortel and AT&T and whatnot. Um, there has to be a fundamental shift of your identity to focus. So you were known as a specialist, but now you're focusing on a business result. So I'm not trying to, what I'm trying to drive with my point here, Mudit, and for the every other audience in the session here is microskilling is not about adding a particular technology because that is easy. What is difficult is building focus. You have to shift from what to who. Okay. And your success depends on what you know versus what you produce. So, one of the things many times middle managers come and question me because part of my job role is why am I not getting promoted, Sweetie? I deserve a promotion, but I'm not getting a promotion. I am exceptional at my work. In a 9 box talent grid, I'm right at the top right hand corner. I'm a change champion, but I'm not rewarded. I think my advice always has been that just by putting your head down and doing your job, saying that I'm avoiding politics, I don't want to be in a role where there is ambiguity. You're actually cutting yourself at the knees. The ability to deal with chaos and ambiguity is exactly what a microskilling focus should be for middle manager. I'm not here to tell you which certifications work, how many such podcasts you should take or master classes you should take. AI will do that for us.
Okay, superb, superb. So that's a lot of clarity on micro skilling. But knowing the cohort, and like most engineers, right? They want things, uh, a little more defined. And unfortunately, what you're saying is learn to live with ambiguity, right? So what I'm really asking you is, in let's just say we can't look that far ahead, but even in the next 5 years, right? What do you see, the challenges mid-career leaders are going to face? Just 5 year horizon. Forget anything further than that, because I think in the long run, we will anyway. We're all dead. So let's just look at yeah. What challenges do you see mid-career leaders going to be, facing?
So I think the first piece that I mean I'll try to I don't know if challenge is the word that I would try to define it, but I think I'm going to sort of address it in the ability to deal with that situation. So it's so funny that when we were growing up and we were in our mid careers, starting from the eighth or ninth year of our career, having an academic degree under your belt, having the ability to have brands under your belt was a guarantee to grow your career. That has unfortunately stopped. So the presence of a situation today, what the mid-career professionals would be facing, is that the ability to understand where is a problem and lower the anxiety of a solution. Now, let me try to double click on this and explain it, because I think Mudit helped me to kind of directionally channelize my answers a little better. At a senior level, when you have had like a 30 years of career, you exactly know where you will fail. When you're in your mid career, you may not have that, because unfortunately what you don't have is your experience. So every situation very quickly accelerates to chaos, and the only way to come out of chaos is priorities. So the first thing that I would call as the biggest challenge for mid-career professionals across various domains is understanding priorities in a chaotic situation. The situation could be outside in, it could be, for example, changing market conditions, your company has got severely your product line or your consumer segmentation has got impacted severely with the onset of AI and things like that. So how are you able to potentially understand and synthesize that chaos and put your priorities? For me, priority always has been, and that I think having a selfish hook on priority is very important. By selfish hook, what I'm trying to say is you look at number one, your camaraderie, that is, what is your node versus your network? That means, what do you know as a skill? Number two, how do you uh, understand the changing conditions of the business? For example, if I take HR, which is more familiar to me, I may not exactly know what are the labor laws in a highly regulated European market. Nobody stopped me to learn that, but I also did not have the ability to learn that because I didn't have a need. So creating a need is your second priority. And that need has to be coming in from a constant urge of trying to push your envelope with an assumption that things would change. Sometimes they don't, you only gain knowledge. The next thing is, I would always tell this to all mid careers is do not underestimate your political capital. What is political capital? Uh, any capable leader that you have spoken to, you admire at your workplace, or you are able to talk to them, you will see that they're not just doing their job. I'm using air quotes here. They're not doing their job. They have a consistent track record. They have earned it. They're doing their job. They are potentially not waiting to be given a permission, but they are able to voice out their opinion. I think I see a question here on dealing with ambiguities. How do we develop the skills of observing patterns, coming up with newer mental models and liquidating? So I think, dealing with ambiguity does not have a secret sauce. We all think that ambiguity has to be dealt with. I'm going to tell you, lead that situation. Don't deal with it. When you're put in a crisis, if you're trying to deal with it, it will erosion out your entire energy. You have to lead. The last thing that I would tell my mid-career leaders is, let us try to stop being a charismatic right hand, blue-eyed boy, girl, woman, man for our leaders. It's not a negative statement. Just be with me for the next 1 minute. We have often been conditioned that I need to make my boss look the best in the board meeting, which guarantees me possibly my boss's job. I'm going to fundamentally challenge that and say, that doesn't guarantee. I've tried that, I've failed. Your confidence is your byproduct of what is the competency you bring to work and how do you repeat it. So if you want to grow in your career, you want to, some of our friends have asked a question, you're dealing with ambiguity, is you need to learn to empty your plate very quickly so that you can take more. You have to stop worrying about the fact that how you are being perceived, because that is just our self-ego. We're just satisfying our ego. Focus entirely on the problem that your leader, your manager, your boss, or whoever you're reporting into is trying to solve. Then the imposter syndrome will vanish. The reality will hit. That priority which I spoke about, handling with chaos, will come in. I want to qualify this with an example. In my late 30s, I got an opportunity for the first time to be a board member. And this could sound a slightly controversial here, but sometimes, before the Trump era, diversity, belonging, equity, inclusion was a pretty big thing. I mean, you used to have chief diversity officers in companies. So when I walked into the boardroom, I was potentially termed as a tokenism. Brown woman board member. You need to get that. I mean, what didn't bother me was the label, and it has never bothered me. But what I tried, and that has potentially worked, is I just did not focus on how I'm being perceived by others, which is feeding into my ego. But I just perceived into the fact that this is the role I have to do. How do I solve the problem? Never afraid of confrontation and removed the imposter syndrome. I just agree that I can't do it all. I don't have to fake it, but I just have to be genuinely curious about the solution. And if your manager, if your boss, if your leader, if all your CXOs are unable to see that, they will see it, because authenticity isn't a performance. It is just absence of a mask. You don't have a mask, and hence you are authentic about it. The last one I will touch upon is not a challenge, but I would always tell this, that uh, the kind of conditioning we have in the Southeast Asia, in the Indian setup, and I'm just focusing slightly more closer home, is we are a little, how should you look at it, a little apologetic to even take a compliment. If somebody just walks up to you and compliments on your work, or says that, hey, you are building a brand for yourself, we often perceive that as a threat, as a competition. So I think the biggest advice that I would really tell the mid-career leaders, that if you want to move in from mid-career to your top of the ladder, you have to become a curator of insights. What is a curator of insights? That you, when you share data, information, it comes with accuracy, it comes with a lesson, and it comes with a framework. That means you're productizing it. That means you are picking it up like a USB key, you plug it to another laptop, it almost gives the same results. So you are, in a way, your leaders, your managers, not the blue white right hand, but you're a partner. So you are stopping to be a specialist for your manager. So I'm basically, Mudit, the whole premise on how I'm operating this for my mid managers is that you are challenging your leaders with a fundamental shift of your intellectual generosity. Instead of talking about what you did and how you should handle it, you are going to talk about, hey, I learned this, and I feel this can solve the problem. You're changing a complete point of view.
Okay. Great. Thanks a lot, Sweety. And I'm going to request all my eager beaver, learners in the cohort here to just hang in. We're going to have, as in every podcast, a section on questions at the end. Okay. So just hang in there, because, just keep your questions and we will take them, as like I always do. Otherwise, we'll get a little sidetracked with, with what we want to cover today. Like, there's a wealth of experience from Sweety, and let's hear from her first. And Sweety, will take all questions at the end. Okay, so I think that should set the basic sort of code that we're all going to follow from now on. Okay, great. So let's move on, Sweety. So you talked about a lot of things there, which, and I just want for us to be able to uh, just try, and I want these the cohort here of leaders to sort of understand each of these things. Yeah, so I'm just going to try and take it to another way. Now that you talked about how you got into the room, and how you sort of uh, did what you had to do, you did the right things rather than being. Now I want you to take on the hat of, let's say, a CHRO now, which you're there, right? And if you were to see a lot of mid-career leaders today, right? When you're sitting in that boardroom of a discussion on, who do we promote into the senior leaderships, right? Maybe N-2, N-3, larger responsibility. What are the things that you look for, and what's your advice to mid-career leaders?
All right. So this is like the closed room discussions that often uh, get lost in Chinese whisper, which is where we fundamentally look at is why did a certain person did not move, as opposed to why did a certain person move. Now, I want to use a disclaimer here that, we are dealing with human minds here. So when you deal with human minds, you need to be fully aware that there are biases, there are opinions, there are favorites. I don't want to, challenge the intelligence of my audience here and myself by saying that we live in a utopian world where everything that is qualitative is quantitative. No. But here's also certain things that, just like our Bangalore traffic, we still go to office, we still exist in this traffic, and we still love this city. This is my third stint in Bangalore, coming back and staying despite the traffic absolutely not improving in Sarjapur Road. But my overriding sentiment is this is the city I want to be, because I just choose to ignore one over the other. I think the promotions, the selections of leaders often come from an elimination criteria rather than a selection criteria. What is an elimination criteria? Many of you would have given all your joint entrance examinations or written some sort of a competitive examination. You have a cutoff, and everybody above the cutoff is what you call as a table stakes selected, and then they are ranked. I think many times when we do performances or potential evaluations or talent reviews, it is a relative motion of quantitative and qualitative analysis of what the person has done or what the person potentially holds the skills to do. One of the fundamental things I'll tell you, and this is one of my bosses had shared this with me, is whenever we try to pick up someone from a manager, senior manager, to a director, a senior director, VP, or roles above that, you often try to pick up that person who becomes a low friction, low maintenance leader. And I'm basically trying to say something that might just about see that, oh, what does that mean? You might be brilliant with your work, but nobody likes to have what I call, in lack of a better explanation, is drama, a constant reassurance, and lack of collaboration. It might sound that I'm giving a very, apple pie motherhood kind of an answer, but trust me, most of the things do not work because our visions, our focuses are disjointed. It is not because we didn't have the skills. So one of the first things that I have seen and I have always, tried to emulate is be a leader who is low friction and low maintenance and does not require constant reassurance. Leaders are pretty hungry about it. The next thing that I would always try to say is have this in your mind playing: visibility to value ratio. Most of the mid managers, you guys pick up all the heavy burden. All of us in the middle management are picking up the heavy burden. But what we lose out in picking up that heavy burden is after 10 hours of high value work, you don't have the energy of creating high visibility. So in lack of a better way of what I call as a perception management, you are in your ecosystem not able to create a brand of visibility for yourself. So how do you attach yourself not to a skill of, okay, promote me, this is my self-appraisal essay I have written, but attaching yourselves to outcomes. So when you attach yourselves to outcome, you are basically trying to tell your leader that you put me in any project, in any domain, in any part of the year, I will still be able to attach myself to the outcome. So I think for when what do leaders see in people when they want to, I mean, what is the readiness is they want to promote somebody when they see that he's a self learner, self motivator, which many of us and most of us are, but is also, a collaborator who can drive change with attaching themselves to the outcome. I'll give you a funny example which one of my professors back in IIM Bangalore had given. He was teaching us a subject called as economic social governance. He's like, he basically told that your self advocacy is a bridge between a high performer and being a high influence leader. So don't be apologetic about it. If you're a scientist in a chemical industry and a product doesn't work out, you don't throw the scientist, you just throw the product and then reevaluate the recipe. So how many times you're able to kind of, fall back, learn, and go back again is what basically defines you. Because trust me, my dear friends, when you go from middle management to the CXO, the most coveted CXO, it is the exact same feeling that you get when you were, most of us were in cycles and in schools and didn't have more than 10 rupees Indian currency to buy an ice cream outside. And we thought that, oh my God, when will we start earning? I don't think we are enjoying. So it's very lonely at the top. There is more failures than success. So for your journey to be there, you're already overcoming that. Did that make
Yeah.
sense to my audience when I'm trying to say? Because this is not, like I said, this is not about certifications or trying to take a skill from one person to another and transfer it and say that I can be a leader.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of gems there. In fact, Sweetie, I'm going to, request, and let's take a break because I want people to reflect, by the time they come back, because there's so much that you're packing into your answers. So we'll just take a quick 30-second, 1 minute break and come back. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Such a pleasure to have you guys back. And, Sweetie, you really, I mean, some of the things that you said were so insightful and so impactful. I hope everybody's picking up, these nuggets because they're really priceless. And, one very important part, right, that you brought out, because I think you gave them, I want little more examples for some of them to pick up because you're also from the IT, and you mentioned it so clearly, right, that you work 10, 12 hours a day and you're so busy trying to get it right. What, then how are you able to tag, and bring that up in terms of getting noticed for what you're doing, and like you said, right, attach yourself to outcomes, attach yourself to, so give us a few examples for mid-career leaders as to what they can do to get that visibility without being apologetic or being sounding as if it's all about myself.
Um, Absolutely. I think, and I was in fact thinking about a couple of examples during the break. So all of us are very familiar with KPIs and goals and KRAs, objectives. They are just known by different jargons, different HR tooling methods that you have. Um, when you sit down in your all hand meetings or your all employee meetings, and you look at like a pyramid that most of the times your CFO and your CEO or your chief technology officer or product officer is presenting, um, the pyramid is often around revenue, around your bookings and your pipelines, and definitely about the EBITDA of the company. More around, and then every company, depending on you're a public listed, a private listed, or you are working in a private equity backed company, or you're a startup, it just changes. But what I'm really trying to say is the two big pillars is one is the product and one is the sales. Now, we as engineers, and I'm just calling all the big population here, assuming that most of us are sitting in IT, we are equally divided in these two pillars, right? Yet, we do not exactly sit in the profit center of generating direct revenue. We sit in not also in the cost center where we're eating into the revenue, because what we are producing is what is getting sold. I think one of the fundamentals things that creating a high visibility platform or a high visibility recall factor whenever you're doing a job is how does your, for example, coding, your product development, your product management is number one, impacting the line of revenue, impacting your end customer, and is possibly migrating into a new environment. So every time we look at, we develop these amazing products that we work for, and I'll take Avaya's example. uh, you end up being what I call is a renewal shop, because often you have sold it to your customer, you have great service, great support, but your innovation stops there. Now, renewal is like your it's like a wedding anniversary. One fine day in a year you are celebrating it, you're reminding it, but the next day you're back to the daily chore, so it kind of loses its spark over a period of time. And I'm just telling this without trying to strike any controversy, but basically just trying to keep it light. There needs one decision when the renewal stops, and that decision is based on the product. It is not based on the service you gave. So what I'm trying to tell is the 10-15 hours of the drill, the grind, the dust that you go through every single day to produce your outcomes, one decision over a longer period of time basically means nothing, because your company starts losing revenue, and then the work that you have done in developing a product could not stay relevant to the changing market conditions. So one of the first things that I always tell the mid managers, especially in the engineering side of the things, is what is the product portfolio strategy? Are we evaluating that strategy? I mean, frequency is one part of it, but through what are the lenses? How are we rediscovering? And there is a beautiful read about that or from Unilever, which I'm pretty sure the audience can go ahead and Google and read about it from AI. Is when you're trying to redefine yourself, you can't redefine yourself in an isolation just on your skills and your deliverables. You have to redefine yourselves based on how your company's product or strategy redefines. And sometimes you'll be surprised you don't fit in there. Not because you don't have the skills or competency, it does not match to your aspiration. You would not be aware of it to make that change. So that synthesis has to come in. Take your current technical knowledge and just see that, is this exactly what you see how the technology is moving in the next 5 years? And you'll be grossly surprised. Now, I have people in my organization, and I have deep respect for a tribal knowledge that people bring in with years of developing a product. But I also want to take it with a grain of salt that what has been your adaptability to be able to move out and develop potentially something that what the customer requires. So everything then just comes down and boils down to the fact is that staying relevant is not just a skill thing. Staying relevant is a market insight, and you have to move from one place to the other to stay relevant. I'm not trying to tell you to change jobs, but I'm trying to basically state that every job that you do has to be relevant. I mean, we can't be an oak tree, right? We got to be like that bamboo tree, always shifting and moving around, because you just never know that when your product seems to be irrelevant for your customer. So stay close to the revenue and the line of revenue, understand how it is matching your CEO's goals, your annual operating plan, your board's directive. Number two, if you are either in product or in sales, try to find your anchor. And being in HR, I'm still telling this because if some of my HR colleagues are here, or my finance colleagues are here, or even colleagues from procurement, travel, immigration, you have to find your anchor in either the product side of it or the sales side of it. The third thing is you cannot develop your visibility just based on your skill. You have to develop your visibility based on either your product or the sales that you are supporting.
Okay, super. So I think that's a lot to think about. And as they do that, let's just move on to another thing that, a lot of mid-career leaders here is tell us about executive presence, right? What's your executive presence, right? How would you define this, and how do you see it being exhibited? And what do you look for, right, from a senior management perspective when you see leaders behave, right? So let's just put it as this way, is what is good executive presence and what is not?
Right. This is a very interesting feeling level thought. Executive presence isn't about looking like a CEO. You can see I'm putting on a blazer today. Mudit is putting on a blazer as well. And maybe that just helps us to possibly look a little sharp. But I would look at defining a good executive presence to the point that Mudit made is making others feel that they're also in safe hands. I'm a big movie buff, if not a cricket buff in India, right? And Shah Rukh Khan is somebody I get deeply inspired, not by his acting skills, but what he speaks about, and how people speak about him when he has left his room. Is you talk to a leader, you talk to an achiever, or for that matter, talk to Shah Rukh Khan, which I have not, you feel that the the leader makes you feel, number one, a psychological safety. That means you are in safe hands and you are important at that moment. That I call is an executive present beyond the suit. You are able to signal a voice versus noise ratio. Um, if you have to build your executive presence, you don't have to worry about being the loudest in the room or having the what you call is the last word. But when the room actually gets silent, people look at you. That I call is an executive presence, which is, in lack of a better or an easier way to explain, is about thought leadership. So when do people come to a person is when they realize that, okay, I'm out of depth or I'm out of span. And I think this is one colleague of mine who would be able to give me a perspective. The last thing that I would always say about my feeling of an executive presence is, um, you know you are not your KPIs, you are not your goals, you are what you have created in terms of your product, your practice, or your technology. I'm going to use a term here, which I would really like my audience to think about is, if you're moving into an executive role and you are suddenly handling so much of expectations and pressure and anxiety, I would like you to think about a kind of detachment, like a strategic detachment. And that detachment comes from a fact is that you will have more failures. So treat it as a data point. It is just a lagging indicator. It is not something that is going to pull you down. So your energy, your ability to make others, feel important, heard, which is a part of active listening. You are not tied to your KPI, which shows your adaptability and your instinct to show the resilience. And last but not the least is, you are having a mindset where you could peak at any stage of your career. You would have heard this from many podcasters and YouTubers and coaches, and I've always felt this to be very relevant, is having an architect mindset. The mindset is such that you are like you're always thinking that, oh, in my 20s I've done this, in my 30s I've done this, in my 20th year of my career I've achieved this. So you're able to like start moving, and start moving with agility, without judgment, without any political cover. So have that mindset. Your executive presence is also evolving, like how your career is evolving. There is no one size fit all.
Okay, super. That's a lot of things for people to digest. Like, are there some things that you see which, don't qualify, completely, which you see, like you said, right, for a lot of IT people who are very technically, sound, and they're very busy and they're spending those hours. What are things that don't qualify as executive presence?
I think I have a very, very allergic and a strong reaction to lacking of executive presence is hoarding of information. Information is just a commodity. And if you hoard information as a leader, you are a bottleneck. Sooner or later, you will be treated as a bottleneck. Now, I'm not, when I'm trying to say hoarding information, I want to double tap on that for a moment. Hoarding information is not about not sharing information in a linearity. That is, we have the best of the technologies today in the market to share that. Hoarding information is about not telling the bad news, not trusting your camaraderie, your team, that as a leader that you have built, where you can talk with honesty, credibility, and repeat that every time. Because hoarding information has a direct impact to a self-satisfying ego of a leader, because they just feel that if I tell this to my team can't take it, which is absolutely wrong, because your team might have a lot of new ideas that you have not explored. So you're kind of building a cage. And I think I did speak about it in the past as well, that if you're on a path of a leadership or aspiring to be one, we all have spoken about teams and team working and situational leadership. I mean, it's kind of, I would say, beaten to death from the longest period of time. But I would just add one little nugget of piggybacking on it is, if you're a leader, don't be in the boat saying that you saved the project. So you have to be in the same side of the boat where you are fixing the project. So I have often seen, especially in the IT world, that a lot of respect comes in from people with very deep technical knowledge, and often they are put in leadership roles which I'm not sure they have signed up for. So it just becomes a challenge to put not the right people in the right role, because what they have is the currency that makes them relevant. So if you are a great technocrat, you have a lot of respect that you have earned. I think choose a path for yourself which continues to fuel what you can contribute, because then you are not holding your information. You are somebody who is having a mindset to build, which is my architect mindset. But if you are a techno functional or more functional kind of a person, then you need to also bring down your self-assuring ego of being a people's person, but building those partnerships with that architect mindset technocrat. So a leader has absolutely no for attachment, for not having a mindset, and finally on information dissemination and decisions.
Okay, super, super, Sweetie. I think people have got a lot more clarity now on what to do and what to avoid. And before we get into our last segment, Sweetie, I know we've taken a bit of time. Do you have some more time, and we can take a few more? Okay.
I do have a few minutes, but I know that the audience might want to do something else on a Saturday afternoon.
Well, the ones who are really hungry and greedy to learn are going to be here. So let's just take a little break and come back. Yeah. Are you a leader looking for a promotion, a salary increase, or even a better job? And you're working really hard, right? You invest in certifications, you've really trying to upgrade yourself. But I think you know that maybe your career hasn't done as well as you wanted it to be. Maybe some of your colleagues are a little ahead of you. Well, don't worry. That's why I've got the Global CXO Accelerator Summit here to India on February 21st and 22nd. Actually, it's a 7-day event, 5 days online and 2 days live in Bangalore. Why is this event special for you? Simply because I'm getting CXOs from the US, from Silicon Valley, from Washington, DC. We've got CEOs of many Indian companies here who are going to come and share secrets of what helped them succeed. We've got a special GCC section where leaders from the global capability centers are going to tell you what's required in that high growth area in India. And above all, I've got HR leaders here also. So we're going to go beyond just resumes and, interviews. But what is it that they look for when they want high quality talent? What is it that they need when they do their talent planning? Interested? Click on the link below and I'll see you on February 21st and 22nd in Bangalore. Click, book your tickets now before they disappear. Thank you. Okay, back to Sweety and the kind of thing. So what I'm going to encourage, I'm just going to ask her one or two more questions. And now if the audience wants to put any questions, you can put them in and I'll take them now, right? So just one other thing, by the time we get the audience questions in, there's a lot to be said about influence without authority, right? And what what is your advice to a lot of mid-career leaders?
This is such a popular question. I sit through some interviews for leaders, and I think always this questions comes up is, so the hard truth is authority is a loan. Okay. So anything that you take as a loan, you got to return it back. But influence is an asset. So that belongs to you. I think it sounds too much of gyan, right?
No. give them, after that, right? What happens? This is really
Right.
landed.
We've heard this quote very popular, that leadership is a behavior, it is not a position, and you could be a leader at any level and all that. Yeah, that all sounds fantastic. But does that really happen in real life? Difficult, right? Difficult at workplace. I mean, when you have a title of a senior manager and you're reporting into a vice president, 9 out of 10 times, your influence, I mean, you have to be double, triple hard or at convincing. Here, you're not trying to influence. You're actually, first of all, convincing and then justifying. If you're able to cross those two barriers, then there are other things depending on, where you are. Like, you have other demographic details that is also very, very important. But I think this is the hard truth. So I'm not going to run away from it. I think here's what I would tell my leaders, the mid-management leaders, is influencing skills comes in. You have to treat it, again, like my favorite word for the day is currency. You have to treat it as currency, and your currency comes from knowledge. So you have to work on your strengths and see, okay, what is that I am able to fundamentally create a change through my ability to influence. Your influence doesn't have to be always hierarchical. Your influence could be cross-functional. Your influence could be almost a 270 degrees also on your customer, on your your team members. And I'm not trying to say a mutiny that you raise, but you are using your influence to drive outcomes and results with a certain bias for urgency. A bias for urgency is you're always action oriented. You're not trying to influence because you feel that this outcome will change it. Please understand that the best of the leaders don't use command, they use influence to connect. But by the time you reach there, you have to remind people that you are at a leadership level and not just at a managerial level trying to command and control. So move out of compliance thinking, move out of trying to say that I am driving the outcome, but try to get into knowledge, transferable knowledge, and driving outcomes. If you're able to do that, then I would say that it's a journey. It takes a little time, like how some of us had taken a journey of diversity, hiring, and things like that. Um, I'll always give this tip to all my mid managers here is when you're going in for a discussion where you know that there are some fundamental agree to disagree, find three kinds of people in that room. Your champion. You have to have a champion. You cannot just say, so who is supporting you? Who is your promoter? It could be somebody right under you, somebody cross functional, somebody maybe above you, but in a different hierarchy. Find the blocker, somebody who is threatened by that idea, by the change that you're trying to do. And then find the fence hitters. That is, you call it like in the political world, you call it the swing vote, right? The undecided. But when that number becomes big, that can move the scales either ways. So what I have done is I create multi layers of communication. So if I have trying to change something, for example, my famous example that I always give, moving away from rating patterns to no ratings. I can't just go ahead and say from tomorrow onwards, this company will not have performance ratings and everybody will be meeting quarterly and giving continuous feedback. Nobody is going to take it. They will say it is one of those stupid HR programs that we are not interested in. And sorry for my French here. But the idea is that you create multi layers of communication. You need to have your one-on-ones with your blocker, somebody who is threatened by your ideas. Try to understand why do they look at it. You need to have a cause action with your champion who is trying to support you. And then you have to see your fence hitters who are not supporting you but are on the edge because they're looking at what's in for me. So if you're able to look through these three things, your influence without authority journey becomes a little easier. But again, I'll go back to my starting sentence. Influence is your asset and authority is a loan. So please don't try to take a loan because you got to return it back. It could be your boss too.
Sure, sure. That's a great piece of advice there. And, things seem to be going so perfect. And we all know as leaders, life for us also hasn't been perfect, right? So, Sweetie, if you were to look back at your younger self, firstly, what advice would you give your own younger self, in today's day and age?
Oh my God, that is, should I say, did I open the Pandora's box? No, not really. I think I think I did say this that in retrospect, we always try to say that, hey, we could have played that shot a little better. We could have been a little more patient. But we are an amalgamation of all the experiences and the options we were given. So we cannot be trying to judge or have a regret. But I think the biggest advice that I would give my younger self would have been that I also did the same thing of moving out, spending a lot of time on value addition rather than visibility addition in the way I was trying to do business. I was caught in that meritocracy myth that I suffered from, that I'm doing so good for my department and I'm treating this like my classroom and my manager as my teacher and I'm like a teacher's pet. Um, and and I guess I did not practice a lot of active listening. These three things I remember is because these three things I changed. So I know that it kind of gave me a second chance when I walked out of the meritocracy myth and I said that my job means nothing just by me doing it. It has to mean a lot to the company, to other departments, to a cross-functional value. Visibility is not about vanity, it is about accessibility. So if the right people don't know what I am capable of, what I can put on the table, then what am I exactly capable of? So that was a huge unlearning for me, a huge ego settler too. And today, when I look at, I have many team members across the globe who also are my younger self in some form or shape as a mirror reflection. And whenever I have my one-on-one, I just tell them that, your career is a adventure, and the best adventures are the ones without a map. So you should have, I mean, the understanding of the terrain. That's all, and then just jump.
Okay, super, super. So I'm going to take, thanks so much for your honesty. And I can also add, and identify with what you said because I've also made the same mistakes. And, so what we'll do now is we'll take a few questions and please put your questions in the chat. That's much better. And I'll take something from Kalyan and sort of turn it around a little earlier that I saw, right? So his question was more around the fact that, listen, if you've as a software engineer, let's just take it as an IT professional, right? As you were moving up, did you manage? How does one get a sponsor? And did it help you along the way? Right? Just some advice around that.
I mean, this is first and foremost, I need to agree that an allyship or a sponsorship is fundamental. The same example that I just said about a champion, a blocker, and a fence hitter is also coming in from the whole idea of getting a sponsor to your ideas. So yes, definitely, my sponsorship journey started from a mentorship path. So I I have always been, coming from again from my conditioning, which I just said that treating my job as a classroom and my manager as my teacher. I think I was a decent mentee. That means trainable, coachable, will take instructions. That came in from my conditioning, and I'm not saying that's a skill that I didn't stop at, but I tried to potentially use it to go up, put up my hand and ask for sponsorship. So I think I will always advise people is um, put your put your egos out for a moment and look at yourself. You've completed 15 years of your career, 12 years, or whatever those value years you've completed. Find yourself a mentor at work. The mentor could be technical in nature, the mentor could be functional in nature, somebody you could connect. And I have also found it outside of work, like really going to mentorships and working with coaches in the past, like Mudit. Um, the next thing that I would also tell you the hard truth about it is, um, it is very uncomfortable to put your vulnerability out there to ask for sponsorship. Okay, please remember when we were all in college and all, and we used to do this inter-college fest. We will go to this big, malls or these gold shops and ask for sponsorships. We've asked. So we put our college badge right as a chest print for us, went and asked, got the money, and we felt very proud about it because we conducted the event. That is exactly what you do in your career. You find an internal sponsor, an industry sponsor, and a strategic sponsor. You don't find it just like that. You would have to go ahead and ask. So the ask has to come from you, and the striving has to come from outside. I think I I have personally felt that the journey of sponsorship should be something where your ideas are sponsored, not your promotion. Okay. Your aspiration is sponsored, which means you're putting up your hand and saying that I want to take that extra job, which would mean that I have to work a little more hard. Maybe I might have to spend half a day on a Saturday. Maybe I will lose out a little more work-life balance. And hence, I want a sponsorship for that. Please try this. It has always worked.
Okay, super. I think, putting yourself out there is the first part of it, right? So great. I'll just take a couple of questions. Yeah. One is something Ravi wants to know: what early warning signs should employees watch out for to suggest that the company or the role may be at risk?
Yeah. Um, that's a great question, and that's a very quantitative question. Um, Roles at risk don't happen overnight. or a company at risk doesn't happen. I think there are two parts to it. If you look at a top-down approach of it, is what is the level of transparency that the organization has with their books in speaking to their employees in various public, I mean, if you're public listed, you are anyway publishing it. You get a sense of how close and transparent you are with your revenue data. You get a sense what could be those early risks. Second is what is your networking capital within the company? I'll be candid here. I have been in the private equity world for almost 8 years now, and I think this is the highest risk appetite job that you would take, because you technically don't walk into a maintenance kind of a job. You go into a job where not all the matrices look green and nice, but you are going to go ahead and get a transformation and always do more with less. You are doing addition with subtraction all the time. So I think what would be interesting is to understand that there is no foolproof of you will never get fired or you will get to know 6 months before you will get fired, if that's what we are trying to go about it. No, there is no foolproof recipe for that, and I don't want not to underestimate my audience's intelligence for it. But what it interestingly makes us understand is how much have we stayed relevant to our goals, how often our goals have changed, and how those goals have impacted the company's revenue. And trust me, it is not a statement I'm making at a 30,000 feet high. I have practiced this. I have practiced this for multiple years, even in my current job. We try to create like an impact cascade. Take the CEO's goal and break it down to the minimum last engineer's last task. If that is not in alignment, you need to have those critical conversations with your managers. That is an early sign. So if you're that invested in your career, you will see this coming. But again, please do not be in a bubble that, like we already know and have spoken about, is there is nothing as a guarantee for performance or a revenue or a change of business direction that can really guarantee that. So yes, you prepare for the territory, but please understand something. We all have the same prepaid card kind of a balance, right, with the number of hours in the day. It's a choice with us is what we do. So today, many of you, I think almost 65 of us are sitting here on a Saturday afternoon and writing. And it is, I mean, it's so humbling to see. I'm going to read through every single question and try to answer it. Maybe see all of you in the event in the couple of weeks to come. But there's no wrong or right answer, but you have to get at it, deciding how you spend your time with.
Yeah. Great one. Thanks, Sweetie. Let me just take another one and mold it a bit. In terms of sometimes experience is held against people, as in saying you don't have enough experience to get to the senior level. And sometimes, people are told you're too experienced, for this kind of role, right? So what's your advice? How to navigate the corporate hierarchy? What do you, suggest?
Yes, and I think I have faced this many times within geographies, within exposure, experience, education, everything. I mean, there is like I tried to say some time back that we are playing a game of elimination and not selection anymore, because the world has moved into a space where um, the number of professionals available to the number of jobs, it's at a very, very different ratio that it used to be, say, 30, 40 years ago. So coming back to how do we navigate through responses from maybe HR people or leaders when you're applying for jobs also outside, is either you have two less or two more of an experience, is I think the first thing you need to navigate is what are you projecting? Are you projecting your years under the belt, skills that you have accrued during that, number of projects that you have handled, or these three things on the left side of the screen, and look at the right side if you are with me? Or are you basically projecting is what is the value you added by saving so much revenue, by doing so much of workforce optimization? You were able to automate a certain process which was pretty antiquated, which results in capacity building from one side and giving it to the possibly other aspect of work? Did you or did you drive an implementation of altogether new technology where you may not have even led, you might have been just a team member? So look how you're kind of drifting your decisions from years of experience to number of years in a company, how many breaks you had, to how many projects you did and what revenue it generated or revenue it saved. What was the outcome of the project, where and what was the delivery, and finally, was it a customer acquisition project, was it an internal project, and what did it help in the people process technology tripod for the company? So when we start having conversations like this, and I would encourage my audience here to please challenge these conversations in your one-on-ones, to be able to reach a point where you can say that, hey, um, it's about my ability to do the job over my years of yes or no. The other side of it is, I know most of our audience is very young in their career, but the other side is, Mudit, what you just said, like, people who have 30-35 years of experiences and they are senior staff. We always wonder that should we give them a job which for which they have to be working with some 20s people in their 20s and 30s? There'll be a cultural diversity which we will not be able to manage. But I don't think so. I think it is about how we are projecting ourselves.
Okay, great. We'll just take one last one because I could go on, and we'll leave something for the for the conference too. But Faraz wanted to know a little bit about political capital. Maybe you want to just share a little bit and
Oh yeah, that is this is something not one of my favorites of as an engineer. Being an engineer, I always tell this, that I always had to look at political capital very very differently. When I started as an engineer, I was like, yeah, it doesn't matter to me. There are so knowing politics and doing politics are two very different approaches when you are working, or when you're in a professional environment, or you're even running your own entrepreneurship journey. And politics has been always connoted with a certain amount of negativity. I'm going to use another controversial example. For example, there is a big joke about HR doing Rangoli contests, right? It's kind of similar of how we look at politics. It is all like, going and backstabbing people and trying to, cut off somebody's knees and saying them to run. I think the most capable leaders um, work through a journey of building the capital of political ability, which means they are doing their job, then they are taking a quick feedback loop journey of understanding, how did my job impact? How did my job impact cross functionally, impact a different team altogether that is not in my hierarchy? How did it impact the revenue line? How did it impact, again, back to my example of sales and engineering? Now, how would you do that? For example, you're a Python scripter, and you are a tech leader and you've been there for 15 years. You're tired of managing all of it, but you find your time maybe on a Friday afternoon, and you walk up to your product management team or your customer experience team or your sales engineering team and say that, hey, listen, I know that we are doing an RFP for a certain customer. Did we include this feature? Was this part of our backlog? Did we try to create some sort of an awareness so that the next renewal, when it comes up, this feature is added? That is the political capital I'm talking about, where you don't wait for a permission to be strategic, but your voice is strategic. You are actually starving, like literally hungry and thirsty to take a stand to get a seat on the table. You're not waiting somebody to call. So that for me is political capital. And leaders often thrive from this. Succession planning thrives from this. I won't go ahead and say that the most smartest chief architect of the company will be the chief technology officer, because when he is going and sitting with the chief revenue officer and trying to sell a product, he has an elevator pitch of maybe 1 or 2 minutes to get an attention. And after that, it is more about where the world is moving. So being aware about your own work, being able to project your own work, and finally being not waiting for a permission to be strategic, and you're not breaking the hierarchy anywhere. So that's what my advice would be.
Phenomenal. Thanks so much, Sweetie. I could go on all day, talking, to you, but I'm going to leave a little bit of curiosity for people to come in at the conference to experience her live. And with that, as we come to a close, I just want all of you to show your attention and just give us your reaction with the emoticon, please. What do you think? And you can see all the hearts coming up there, and all. So people have really loved it. I think this was really on another level. Thank you so much. I mean, Sweetie, and I can't wait to sort of see you and welcome you along with others. And I'm sure there's so much more to talk about with you. Yeah. So with that, this is the love from the community, and I'm sure they're going to look forward to meeting you. So if you kind of get mobbed at the conference, it's all you're doing. Okay. So thank you very much all over again. And thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And
It
with that,
was wonderful. Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
okay,
Bye.
yeah. Okay. Bye bye. Take care as we come to an end. And goodbye, and see you guys again at the conference. Bye bye.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.